You gotta unmute yourself, sir.
Unmute yourself, Calvin.
You know, I've been on this thing for 18 months and I'm still figuring things out, right? Hello, everyone. My name is Calvin. I'm an alcoholic, you know, and it's good to be here tonight. It's good to be anywhere sober and somewhat in my right mind, you know. And, you know, yesterday when I called Phil to make sure that, you know, that I had all the signals right. And so Phil, while we was talking, maybe about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, you know, we had this big rain in New Jersey, right? And my cellar flooded. I mean, it's flooded. The washing machine was down there floating around, you know. So we didn't have no hot water for 3 or 4 weeks, right? We just got the hot water heater put in Monday because there was 250,000 people without hot water heaters. That's how the flood had hit New Jersey, right? And you just couldn't find it. You couldn't buy a hot water. So as I was sitting there talking to Phil yesterday, some people called me and they told me, we're going to pay for all your damages, you know. And I said, because I didn't, if I, you know, I was ready to absorb everything if I had to. I didn't sit back and worry one day about it, how I was going to get fixed or how I was going to work it out. Because I learned that I'm not going to worry about things that I can fix. The things that I can't fix, maybe a little bit, but things I can, I just take care. I do my best with them. But anyway, that ain't what I came here to talk to you about. But as Phil was talking to me last night, he got the feeling that, my God, he's seen that excitement come over me, you know. And but I'm grateful, and always God has always sent me a tree in the desert. But that's why I don't worry. And I can look back. I got my sobriety date is July 26, 1986, and that's when I was separated from a drink. And I haven't found it necessary to pick up a drink since that day. Now, do that say that my life was, you know, like peaches and cream? Absolutely not. I probably made more mistakes in recovery than I did before I got here. You know, and I was talking about this a little bit last night. I think to myself, I said, there's 3 kinds of drunks, right? There's a wet drunk, there's a dry drunk, and then there's a sober drunk. And them are 3 different people. Them 3 different people. Sometimes I wonder, is the middle one worse than, is really tough than the first one? Because see, without recovery, without the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, because for me, because I'm profoundly broken, what happens is I'm not a nice guy. And I didn't learn how to manipulate, lie, scheme, and that don't go nowhere. You know, that don't go nowhere. And as I stay here, and so when I first got here, when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew I really didn't want this program. I wanted the program. I didn't want to drink no more, but I didn't want to go to the meetings like you asked me to. I went there and I went early and I came home. You know, I left early, and I didn't stay after the meetings long, you know, because I was scared. You know, and I think about a guy like me out in the streets when I was drinking. I was a tough guy. I thought I was, and now I'm a cold-blooded punk, right? I'm scared to death. You know, and then what got me into my last treatment center, right, was I had went to treatment in 1985, and when I went to treatment, I just went there to get the heat off. You know, wife was leaving, boss wanted to fire me, my family didn't want me around. You know, so I ran the treatment to, and I had a good job, so I ran the treatment, and what happened was the seed got planted, but I didn't see the seed getting planted. As I was there, and I remember they used to take us out to these meetings, and we would go to these meetings, and I was so self-absorbed. I'd be sitting in the middle and recovery all around me. I couldn't hear a word they said because I was so full of my own plans and designs. You know, so I got out on Sunday and I got drunk again. I got out on Friday, I got drunk by Sunday. That was the worst year of my life when I came back into 1986. Because I believe today with a head full of AA and a belly full of booze is not a good mixture. You know, I'm the youngest of three kids, right? I'm the baby boy. I come from a house out in Somerset. I came from a private home. I had the opportunity to go to private school, and always been maladjusted. I would just take the neighbor's car, man, for no reason, and just go. You know, no drinking me or nothing. And my parents bought me a car that was 2 years old, so I would stop doing that. And so if you live that way, you in the court systems a lot. So early on, from 13 to like 16, I was always in the court systems. And I talked about this a little bit last night, that as my mother was taking me, my brother was in the Navy, and I'm the baby boy. They taking me up to this little town called Somerville so I can go to court. And my mother's telling me, three of us riding up here, 2 of us coming back. And she got up there and begged that judge not to lock me up. And I could care less. And 2 days later, I'm going to do the exact same thing all over again. Without a drink. Without a drink. You know, it's real interesting. So what happened, if you live that way, and I remember the probation officer, I was on probation from 13 to 16. And the probation officer told me when I was 16 or 17, and he told me, he said, "You're a pretty good kid." He said, "You know, you need to get a job because you be hanging out with the wrong people." You know, and so what I did, I went out, so I'm looking for a job. You know, a little job at a grocery store, moving baskets around, maybe something, you know, to make, you know, so they just to keep him off my back. And what happened was nobody would hire me. And I went to this Fortune 500 company, and they hired me. And I stayed there 39 years, almost 40 years. And I should have been fired many times because I went there as a kid. You know, I went there at 17 and I stayed there till I was 57. You know, and I look today, I know that the hand of God has always been on me. I couldn't see that back then. I thought it was me being slick or getting through and all that, but it wasn't. You know, I remember my first marriage. I married this girl I met that she was 16, I was 17. We were still in high school, and I stopped running around with them Rockies, and I started like being with her all the time, and she really loved me, right? And if somebody loved me, right, they care for me too much, I just take advantage. I don't know how not to do that. And so that's what I did. And eventually one day she left, and she would leave all the time, go back. One day she left and didn't come back. And I broke up, man. And I wanted her back in the worst way, but I didn't want her, but I didn't want nobody else to have her. I was selfish like that, right? So what happened was she came back and I left her and moved on with somebody else. And, you know, and by this time somebody ended up with my wife, I ended up with somebody else's wife, and it was just messy. And I'm 21 or 22 years old at this time. And I had never I had smoked a little bit, you know, pot a little, and I didn't really care for that because it made me paranoid. And now I'm feeling all this guilt and shame. I'm feeling like I'm not enough man. I'm feeling like, you know, then I want to be too much man. And you know what I mean? And what happened is I found a drink. I found alcohol. And when I found it, alcohol wasn't my problem in the beginning, it was my solution. I found an ease and comfort in that drink at first. It made me settle down. It made me not feel like I was different from the crowd. You know, it just gave me something that nothing else ever gave me. No pot, nothing else. Alcohol gave me something that I never got from nothing else. And if something gives something to makes me feel that way and I'm profoundly broken, I'm going to chase it into the gates of hell. And that's what I started to do. And for 10 years, I drank hard. I would come to and pass out. I wasn't good on that job. That's why I told you I should have been fired many times. But always somebody would catch my back. There's a woman in the program. She's in the program probably 40 years now, 38, 37, 38, 39, I don't know how long. But she was my boss. And I remember one time that I just didn't show up. I didn't call a no-show. And I did that a few times. And they had told me, next time you do that, we're going to suspend you. And she stepped up for me and said, he called. And I hadn't called. And they gave her all kinds of flack. She saved my job. And that happened time and time again. Somebody would step in the way of the book. And it made her job harder because she was a supervisor. And it made her job really hard. And I see her in the rooms all the time. Actually, she spoke Friday at a group. you know, and I think about all the people that has saved my life, even before I got it. But I couldn't see it because I'm so slick. It's me doing it. I'm so self-absorbed. I'm ego driven. And but anyway, I'm working my way up to that treatment. So now that they tell me they're gonna suspend me, I'm thinking, well, I remember my brother I went to treatment, my oldest brother, and well, I know it didn't work. But he told me it's a great place, man. So I ran to the treatment center just to duck and cover, right? The wife leaving, job want to fire me, everything going wrong. So I run here for cover. And I go there and I go to this place, like I got good insurance, I got a good job. And and when I'm there, they play in volleyball, they got, golf out, swimming pool. And I mean, I ain't had a break from, like this is like I went to Club Med or something, man. I went to, like I went to Hawaii or something, and I, and they have picnics and stuff, and they take us out to meetings at. And like I said, I was so self-absorbed, I ain't hear nothing they said. I stayed there 29 days. I remember the counselor telling me, "You ain't hit a bottom." She said, "You ain't hit a bottom," and I didn't really know what she was really talking about, because what had happened, what they had said was that I couldn't drink a day at a time. But what I thought was they said that I couldn't drink at all no more. And I didn't come there for that. Because I couldn't fathom my life thinking without a drink. I didn't want my life to be so messy. I didn't want everybody to be always pissed off. I didn't want them wives to keep leaving. I didn't want them kids to be running in the room when I come in the house. That's why I wanted to stop. But I didn't want to stop drinking. I wanted to stop fighting with baseball bats when I get drunk, or I'm bringing home flowers, but you don't know who's showing up. I was erratic, and I want that to stop. And they said the only way I can stop that is 100% abstinence, right? And I couldn't fathom my life like that. And so what happened was I got out of that treatment center on a Friday and I got drunk on Sunday. But you come in Alcoholics Anonymous, you come through the thresholds of Alcoholics Anonymous, your drink can never be the same again. You will never, no matter what, you will not. And what had happened, I could not. I come to the meetings drunk every Saturday morning. I run hard Friday night, come to the meeting Saturday morning. And one Saturday morning, I came to the meeting and there was a guy there, and me and him started PVs together. He was a young guy, and I was a young guy. He was from New Orleans, right? And he had lost everything. He lost his job, he lost his wife, he lost his kids, he lost his driving license, he lost everything, right? And he was in the meeting, right? And he was a couple years sober. And he told me, he said, "Calvin," he asked me, he said, "You give me a ride back up to Edison?" I said, "Sure, man." So as I'm telling you, he said, you can get off here. You don't have to lose everything like me. And I heard him. He was my Ebby. I heard this dude, right? And so I'm coming up to the end, and what happened was it was New Year's. My wife had came back, and she had left, and she came back, and it's New Year's, right? And she told me, she said, "The only way I come back, you go to church." And I think, damn, I looked at it, I tried to weigh it. Go to church or burn the house down, right? Because I'd go cook something, pass out. Next thing you know, the fireman at the door, I'm dropping and rolling, right? So I said, well, and I needed somebody to take care of me, because I sure couldn't take care of myself. And she said, "The only way I can come back is you go to church." So it's New Year's, 1985 coming 1986. We go to church, and I could dress up and look normal, right? So she had all the water running. My father owned his own business. After his business, we were drinking. So she came and got me from out there drinking with my dad. And she brought me home, and she had the tub ran, and my clothes laid out. I got dressed up, and we go to this church. And I'm good and drunk, and I'm good and juiced up. And I walk in there, and I'm sitting there. And as I'm sitting in the church, and I'm sitting up in the front, close to the front row, maybe 1 or 2 pews back. And me, my wife, and my daughter at the time, man. And there was a woman behind me, man, and she was winding up. And the drunkest the drink is starting to come on. You know that irritable and discontented feeling when that drink is starting to come down? I was right there in that spot. And the lady behind me is winding up. And I don't want to be here. And it's crazy and it's loud and the lights is glaring and I'm sweating and I don't want to be in this church. And the woman jumped up with the spirit, I guess, and I jumped up with her. I said, if you don't shut and sit your ass down. And the next morning, I know everybody was looking at me funny around the house, right? And my daughter kept telling me, Dad, you did it this time. I said, what? Because I couldn't remember. I was like kind of like a blackout or something. I didn't remember what I did. I did that many times. I don't know what I've done. So she said, oh, you did it this time. And she wouldn't tell me what I did. But eventually, they let me know what I had did. And I said, well, that's the end of my church career, right? And they said the preacher had a thing of people coming to church drunk. I wasn't going back there. I wasn't going here because I wasn't going back there. But I made a decision that day. I don't need people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't need that church. I need no God. I'm just going to stop drinking. And I did. I stopped drinking for about 3 months. Man. I stopped drinking. And one day, it was a spring came, the trees started to bud about March or April, something like that. And some said, man, you made too much of that. That wasn't a big deal. And I picked up a bottle of Coke 45. And then the bottom of that bottle must have been cold and sandy because I lost my mind immediately, right? And from that day into the day I came into that second treatment center, I was running so hard, I was passing out and coming to. And what happened, I got in a fight with a guy with a baseball bat in front of my mother's house. By this time, I'm making a lot of money. I'm making almost 6 figures. And between me and my wife, we're making almost 6 figures. And I'm staying on my mother's. I've got my whole family proud of my mother's house. Because I ain't paying nobody nothing because I'm a drinking drug miner. And I remember that I knew my mama was not that talk. She gonna let me know. Because she's a proud woman, she was just, and I'm out there and she was very far from the biggest churches in Somerset. And I'm out there cutting up, I'm out there, and I remember my daughter sitting on her knees in my mother's house on a little hill with a big picture window. And I can see her eyes today. She was 8 years old. And she had seen me act like this many times. But this time was different. Because I had been introduced to it. And I knew there was another way, and I knew if I can make it to the next day, I'm going back to that treatment center. And on the way to that treatment center, there was a liquor store, maybe way out, and I said, stop. And I got me a bottle of rum and I drank it down. And when I got to the treatment center, I fell in the door. I knew that was my last drink. That was July 26, 1986. Now, I came in sobriety. I'm 32, 33 years old. I'm coming into recovery. And now, I got a good job and I'm a fast learner and I'm scared to death. But I ain't got no drink to hide behind. And I come in alcoholics, they tell me to go make coffee, a whole lot of things. And what I did was I started burying myself in that job, making a whole lot of money. And I bought a lot of outside stuff, right? I bought a new Corvette. I bought a new Jeep to pull. I bought a brand new boat. I bought a brand new Jeep to pull the boat. I'm running 3-4 miles. I'm young. I'm running 3-4 miles. I'm bench pressing 300 pounds. I'm built up. You know what I'm saying? And everything's out there. And I always say I was like, Gucci on the outside and Kmart on the inside. And so I'm, because that's what I thought every life was. If I get enough stuff and things, I'll be okay. But if you suffer from a soul sickness like I do, no matter what you put in there from the outside, it'll just suck it up. Because I suffer from the internal. And I did that for a couple of years. And some guy told me one day, he said, you dry as dust. Somebody coming to you and Matt, you go up in school. I got kind of pissed off because I think I got more time than you. Because I'm collecting time. And I'm thinking time is the answer. And I find out time is not the answer. Now I need to stay sober and I need to do something, but time is not my answer. I sponsor most guys I sponsor today. I got 35 years, right? Most guys I sponsor got 40, 41, 38, 37 years, most of the people. And they don't want to drink, they want to shoot themselves. Life becomes so hard. Without real recovery and without a drink, life becomes really, really hard. So I started coming back to the meetings. I started really, I never left the meeting, but I really didn't participate. I was like one of them guys that just sit in the back. You never know I'm almost there. And what happened was I started coming to this one particular meeting. And this woman, I was with her last night. She's probably 40 years old, 38, 39 years old. And she told, and I wouldn't say a word because I thought whatever I had to say, nobody really wanted to hear because I had no self-worth, right? Without a drink, I had nothing to say to you. And she asked me to share. And I shared a little bit of something. And then she said, here's a guy I want you to call and use as a sponsor. And one day I got jammed up with my mom, and she was like talking, and this thing wasn't end up blowing me like it should have ended up. And I called him, I'm ranting like a maniac. He said, Calvin, meet me at a meeting. And I met him at a meeting, and I felt this ease and calm. And I said, wow, it's something I really knew that I had plugged into something. And then so I got a coffee maker, the group I was in last night, I became the coffee maker. Back then it was a gigantic group, a couple hundred people, they're like this. And I would love to make the coffee. I get there at 9, the meeting was a 9 o'clock meeting. I would get there at 6:30 and make the coffee, cut the crackers. And people would come in early and they would get to talk to me, and I broke that sense of isolation. That sense of loneliness left me. I felt the power of this fellowship, and it's a strong fellowship. But it will not bring you from bridge to shore. It just will not. I always understood, the fellowship, the fellowship won't keep me sober, but I can't stay sober without it. That's an interesting place, right? And eventually, I was so broken, and now my second marriage is tore up, and that's coming to an end. And so she done left, and we broke up. And I'm in the program. I'm going to meeting, and I meet a little girl in the program. I meet a woman in the program. Probably the craziest girl I could have met, man. And I wasn't well myself. So we started running together. Me and my wife, moved out, going back to another town. And I'm running with this girl. We ain't divorced, but we ain't together. And I'm running with this woman in the program. And she get pregnant. Now this situation gets real. I'm 3 years sober. And this situation gets real. My wife comes to me, I call her my midwife. I had 3 of them. So she was my midwife. And she comes to me, she said, Calvin, she said, you were in that program for 3 years and you still a rotten song. You still ain't, that ain't did nothing. And for some reason, the curtain went up. Before I could send her off and send her in the wrong direction, I have people I could, with them, I could kind of mess up and make them apologize, and I could do that to her sometimes. But for some reason, God had entered me enough that I couldn't spin. And the curtain went up, and I knew what she said was spot on. I knew I can't live like this. And I hit my knees and I asked God, please do not let me live like this. You give me a shot one more time at this thing. And I've been committed to this program ever since, right? And I did what I've been told after that. And my life started to flourish. And I come from an area where it's just don't drink and go to meetings. I'm not knocking it. We all one. Unity, I don't care. It's okay. So all I knew was that. Nobody really could explain to me how to work the steps. And they had all these different pathways to send you in different directions. I didn't understand. I didn't know what to do. All I wanted was some clear-cut directions on how to get better, And in 1992, I went to see Joe and Charlie in Frostburg, and my life changed. I come back here, you give me some information like that. I'm an arrogant, young fella, and I come back here and I'm like Moses coming down out the mountain with the tablets. You got to do this, right? You got to be this way. 30 years later, 29, 30 years later, I've gotten older and I've learned how to use it with love and service, right? And it's been a journey along that path that has changed who I am, and I think about, all the things that have changed. And that daughter that me and her had, that woman I met, we've been married almost 30 years. We've been together 32 years. And it's been a rough ride, but we hang in there together. And I think we're closer than anybody ever been with in my life. Old man told me something once, and I told him when he found out she was pregnant, old guy had a lot of time. He said, Cal, he started beating me up. He said, why do you guys ever get some self-esteem and stop this? You know. So after he finished beating me up, I asked him, but I've taken him home. I said, what do I do, Bill? I said, can we make it, man? He said, yeah. He said, you can make it. He said, but both of you gotta live with my spiritual. He said, what, because we're too nasty without. And he was dead many years ago. He was spot on. And I picked up them steps. And I started working them steps, and my life started to switch up. Now I was on that job. I remember I ran for this job to be this, like, over this union, right? 1,200 of us were that, to be over the union. I lost to a guy, God knows, by a landslide. But they know I was angry, and I'm sober. They know I'm angry. I ran about 3 or 4 years later, and I won by 1 vote. And I became, and after that, I was unopposed. And when that part of that job closed up, and I had to bid for another job, out of 500 of us, and I was like 52 years old at the time, and I had been there 34 years. And it was like I would almost not work there. I wouldn't have got no health insurance. It would just been a mess. 25 of us out of 500 got jobs. I was one. From them wanting to fire me to that place. I remember at the last day, because I was a hazardous waste technician, right? So I had to stay there till the place was empty. And I was the last one. When I went out in the parking lot, my truck was out. They called me down to Human Resources, and they gave me a credit card for $500. They said, we can't tell you how much we appreciate what you have done. Now, going from almost being fired to that spot, and then getting passed on. And when I went there, everything just doubled in my life, everything. And I think about how, that's why I say God has always had his hand. You know, 9 years ago, I'm sitting in my room. I'm in my bedroom. And my oldest daughter ain't never like me. She just ain't never like me. And she called me up one day in the morning and said, Daddy, see, I'm suffering from the disease of alcoholism. Help me. And I told her, I said, you go to the hospital, because she lives in Pennsylvania and I live in New Jersey. So she did that, did nobody help her? I said, well, go to the meeting, tell them what you told me. And she went there, and the woman grabbed hold. That night, her husband said, I'm flying in, I want you out of my. So she walked to meet me that night. I knew she was gonna be on the way. My daughter came in here and she got busy, and she stayed right with her dad. She got a sponsor. I said, find somebody that's worked these steps and grab hold to them. And she grabbed hold to somebody, and they took her through the steps, and she got free. And her and her husband got close together. And my grandkids started to change up. Her house started to change up. And she, when she went to move, she took this is earlier, right? With 90 days, she took the curtains or the shower curtains, and they sued her or something. And last year, that girl made more money than my whole family put together in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm more scared for her now that the girl is kind of half-ass rich than I was when she was broke and taking them curtains. Because she got just enough money to knock God out of her life. And she told me, she called me a couple of days ago, and she told me, she said, Daddy, and I didn't say nothing, I just told her once, I don't want to lose you. So I ain't getting in the middle of your program. Sure. She said, Dad, she told me, she said, Daddy, she said, you were scared for me. I said, yes, I was. She said, Daddy, she said, I went to a dark place. I said, yes, you did. So if we think of money, the answer is no. These 12 spiritual principles we got in this program is all I got to give me peace and ease. And I'm gonna talk about all my kids. I got my oldest son, I was his best man when he got married. He came out when I got so he was 15. He turned 50 years old next week. And I was his best man when he got married. And this boy is a healthy, wholesome man. You know what I mean? And then my grandson speaks 4 different languages. And I think about, all my grandkids. I got 7 kids, and and I got 11 grandkids, and they know that I'm their dad. And last year, when Landon, my birthday is in December, and I live in New Brunswick, and downtown here, we got a big building, it's like an art center, in the art district. And they got this new building just built down there. It's like, I don't know, 30 stories high. And my daughter lives up there somewhere, and one of my daughters. And they got a billboard down, electronic billboard. Big as my house, right? And my wife took me down there at night. And I had took a picture with all my grandkids and all my kids. And they took me out to dinner, and they was all around. Sitting in my lap, they was all over. And they took a picture, and they put it in, they all stuff, what they thought of me. And they put it on this billboard. And she took me down at night and showed me. And I thought, from running in the closets to this. I think about my baby boy. Me and my wife now, we got a baby boy. I got a young boy. Never seen no trouble. Never had to go to school for him. A little overweight. Got out, they got bullied. He got something in his hand. He hurt somebody, or somebody things didn't turn out well. And he ended up in the jail. And I thought I was about to lose my mind. I couldn't lose from his mother. We went and climbed the pyramids of South America. I mean, every summer we spent down on the beach in Ocean City, Maryland. You know, and he's sitting somewhere in the jail, and I couldn't even fathom this. I spent $30,000 in lawyer fees to try to keep this boy out of the jail. And all I did was get in this way. But God was teaching me a lesson. He was teaching me a lesson. I would sit downstairs some nights, I wake up and think about my son not with me. And I couldn't sleep, and the pain would get so strong. Because I went from not caring too much to the other side of the coin, to I'm damn near codependent. But the lesson was there. I got a friend I met on Zoom named Rico Cruz. And Rico, I called Rico, I said, Rico, I'm suffering, man. And Rico told me, he said, Cal, lean into the pain. That's what God sits at. And I did exactly what he said. And you know, we kind of people duck pain with all we got. And I leaned into that pain. And when it turned me loose, I knew I had grown closer to the God of my understanding. And I let go of my boy. I got out of his way. I stopped, and all the things I did, all the money I spent, Jabel's, lawyers, and courts, whatever else, it wasn't for him. I couldn't take his consequence. I never do nothing without a string attached. I couldn't take my son's consequence. That's what it was. And I was getting in the way of his consequences, and that was my mistake for him. But everything that I go through in Alcoholics Anonymous from day one to now, I've learned and grown and learned how to show up and to grow closer to the God of my understanding. Me and my wife, we sit here at night. My wife works with a lot of women. And I work with a lot of men. And sometimes when we both going through it, and when it talks about our book, big book, we be able to match calamity with serenity. Me and her doing that right now. There was people around the six, a whole lot of things going on around us. But we okay. We're okay. And I ain't never felt okay. I ain't never felt okay. You know, I got a chance to, when I got sober, my whole family was living. My whole family dead now, everybody. Except my kids and stuff, my offspring. My mom, my dad, my brothers, they're all gone. My aunts and uncles, they're all gone. And because of the steps, I had a chance to be with my dad. I remember I used to take my dad's power tools and sell them, right? You know, take my dad's power tools and sell them. And I had a chance to make amends to him and spend time with him. The last year of his life, man, I took him every Saturday, we go riding. And one day he was out there, he was sitting in the garage picking his old guitar. He never was good at it, but he always tried to pick a guitar, my dad. And he called me Rudy. He said, Rudy, come here. Son, come here. Come here. So I was coming out, sat down. He said, Rudy. I said, what's up, Pop? He said, He said, boy, he said, he knew he was dying. He said, you think there's a God, son? You think there's a God? And I said, yes, Dad, I do. I think it. I said, I don't just think it, I know. He said, okay. He said, okay. He was asking his baby boy, his screw-up, was there a God? He had seen that much a transformation in his son that he would ask me something like that. And this thing ain't about words. This thing is about transformation. I had an opportunity to take care of my mother every doctor's appointment. She was the last one to go. I found my nephew dead in the garage. He committed suicide. He couldn't get this program. He was a Marine. He was in Desert Storm 1, and he was a good guy. Everybody loved him. And he went through a divorce, and he just couldn't make it through, man. And he went in and cranked my car and went to the next one. I done seen a lot of things happen. I guess it's a time, my man. You tell me, put your finger up. Somebody let me know when I'm getting close, Tell me. Yeah, because I don't want to go if I don't like going over. So, yeah. Okay, cool. I don't know if I'm gonna make it that far. When the tank is empty, the tank is empty. You know what I mean? I can't stretch things out. So, and I like to talk a little bit about when I went out after 34 years when I was losing that job, and I had to go over there, I was gonna lose everything. And I had to interview inside that company for another job. When I went, they just fill out the application, right? Now I got to interview, write out a resume, and people help me, right? And when I got up there to the first interview, and I'm a pretty heavy guy, so I'm thinking they're gonna hire me. Got a lot of young folks that bounce around a lot better than I can. Right? But because of A and the way I can handle myself, they gave me a second interview. I knew I had a chance. And on the second interview, they asked me something real interesting, right? It was just me and a woman. This is the first time I interviewed with 3 people. This last interview, I interviewed with 1 person. And I'm sitting there interviewing with this woman. And she asked me a trick question. You know how they ask you some questions? You come right there. She said, when was you late for something, when you was on time or something? And y'all told me how to be honest. I don't know how to really tell you a big lie no more. So she told me, she said, when was you late or on time? On time for something or late for something? I said, well, I was late for picking a guy up for this men's meeting, this men's group I go to. Yeah. Because my daughter had a car accident. She said, well, when was you on time for something? I said, I worked with a guy and he had some charges. And I told him if he turned himself in, I'll be there Sunday to see him. And I'll be there at 12 o'clock. And I was there at 12 o'clock. And that's what I could come up with. So now she got real interested in this male mentoring program, or this program I try to switch off to. And she said, what is now? And she got me cornered. And I told her, I'm in a job interview, and I told her, no, I'm in recovery for 25 years or 24 years. I don't know what it was at the time. But it was I had a good amount of time. And she said, we're going to bring you on. She said, usually we don't tell a person. Now we send them a letter. She said, we're going to bring you on because we need people here that's honest like you. And I think to myself, my God. The other day, maybe about 3 weeks ago, there's a guy I've been messing with for 5 years. 5 years. I mean, I have the opportunity to sponsor and work with a lot of people. But I was working with this guy. And me and his mother got him into treatment 5 years ago. And this guy had a degree in criminal justice, started his own business, had the biggest landscaping business in Central Jersey. He had $1 million contract, and he had just got a $500,000 contract to add on to that. But he down in Trenton there in them alleyways, copping drugs and drinking and drugging, right? And he would get 3 or 4 months, and we'd be talking. Then he would go. Then I would try to play with the steps with him, work with the steps as I could with him. And but I never would reject him. I would never reject him. I always knew. He always knew I was going to be there. And he had called me. He owned a house down at the shore, the Jersey Shore. And he called me. He said, Calvin, I'm out. And I just started drinking again. He's down the shore. And I said, well, you're in the right place. A lot of drunks there, a lot of meetings there. Go find a meeting. I opened up social media, a week later, and his obituary. I mean, I got kind of close to this dude. So I said, I'm going to go to the funeral. Because I kind of knew his kids, and I ain't never been with him, but I used to ride with his son Jake in the truck, and coming back from team soccer and hockey and football and baseball. He stayed right with his kids. Yeah. So I knew his son, but he always be in the truck with him, and we'd be talking on the speaker thing. So I'm sitting in the church. I'm the only black guy in the church. There's 150, 200 white people, and I'm the only black guy. I'm church packed, and they can't figure out why am I here? Why is this guy here, right? And I'm sitting here in this church, man. And then everybody go up to view the body, and then shake, the wife's hand and see the kid, and go talk to his mom and dad, his brother and sister was there. And I got up and I talked to little Jake a minute. I looked at Bill. I want to talk to Jake for a minute. That's his son. And Chuck his wife. His mother grabbed him and hugged him. Now that's a line waiting behind. And she won't let me go because she know I was trying to help save that boy. And she would let me go, and she would grab me, hug me again. And people wondered what could be their connection. They don't understand the power of Alcoholics Anonymous. Tears running down my face, tears running down her face, and I'm just amazed. When I walk away from them, just the position of the things you get to see in Alcoholics Anonymous. If they only knew. Well, I'm out of here, guys. I hope somebody got something out of all of that, I got honest as I could and said what I could. Thank you for letting me come, and thank you for having me.